Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. It is always a pleasure to be here with you all, and I hope that today you have had a wonderful, wonderful start to your week. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, or it may be well into Tuesday morning, depending on where it is that you're joining us from in the world today. And as always, thank you so much for making us part of your listening pleasure, of your viewing pleasure. We appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much for all the likes, the shares, the follows. Thank you to all our new subscribers on YouTube going to our channel, giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to the podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It has been an amazing wild ride after ISTE. So many great connections, so many great conversations. And today is definitely no different. As always, we try to bring you the best of the best in what is happening in the ed tech space, whether it's a founder, whether it's a creator, whether it's an educator, whether it's another podcaster. We always bring you the best for you so we can go ahead and continue to sharpen our skills in every which way, shape, or form. And today I am delighted to welcome a very special guest. Her name is Laura Taylor, and I won't give up too much of an intro, but I just want to say that I had the opportunity to meet Laura at ISTE this last year through a mutual friend, Jacqueline Gochoco. And of course, we want to give her a shout out because she recently
Hey,
got
Jacqueline.
married. So, hey, Jacqueline, thank you
Congratulations.
so much. Appreciate everything that you do, my friend. And you're just an amazing connector. And
Mhm.
so I had the opportunity to meet Laura at a networking event, and she told me about her amazing platform. And then, maybe a couple of weeks after that, we got together and we got to meet, and she shared the platform with me. And I was just like, wow, I'm blown away. So I'm really excited about today. So today I am here with Laura Taylor. Laura, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Fonz. Thanks for having me. And Jacqueline, thanks for the connection. Fonz is right. You are an amazing connector. So we definitely appreciate it. But doing great this evening. Thanks. How about yourself?
Awesome. I am doing great. Today was our the first day of school for our district.
Yeah.
So everything was great, and actually everything felt like it went very smooth. The day went by really fast. So that is really good. And I was thinking to myself, if that's any indication of how this year is going to go, then we're already off to the right foot because it
Yeah.
is like go go go, and that's kind of like that's the environment that I love. So thank you so much for asking. All right. So, Laura, like, let's go ahead and connect you with our audience. I definitely want my audience to hear about your work, what you're doing. So, if you can give us a little brief introduction and what your context in the education and ed tech spaces, that would be great. And then we'll dive right in.
Well, absolutely. Thanks, Fawn. So, yes, I am co founder of MetaClass. And MetaClass is a community engagement platform for educators by educators. So, we are channel based messaging. So, a very real time, efficient way to communicate. Customizable way to communicate mixed with a discrete social news feed to engage educators. And yeah, very excited to be able to serve teachers because I do feel like teachers are often underserved. So anything to add value to their lives, very, very excited to do so.
Excellent. Well, definitely, I'm really excited to dive in because, like I mentioned to our audience members that are watching or catching this on the replay, or who will be, close to joining us live, when you first told me about it, I just quite couldn't wrap my head around it. And I was like, okay, I kind of get it and so on. But it wasn't until you shared it with me and I got to see the inner workings and the way I was like, this is wonderful. This is amazing. And one of the things that I love that I know we'll get into is, like you said, the real time communication, the ability to share resources, and just the way that the collaboration is that component. All those three mix in, and like you said, it's a very great tool to serve our educator community. So, uh, Laura, I want to ask you, what inspired you to be or co-found MetaClass and come up with this concept? So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, and that's a great question. If I really had to go back to the genesis of what inspired me to jump on board with an ed tech product like MetaClass, it is my mom. So my mom, she is one of my heroes. She's an amazing human being. She might even be a great one to have on the show one day. So she was an educator for over 40 years in the special ed realm. She started as a teacher and eventually went into administration. But I have these vivid memories. I'm one of three girls, I'm the oldest, and she was such a great example for my sisters and I. I have these memories of like sitting in our kitchen. Do you remember when phones were attached to the wall? I don't know if you're old enough for that, but like my kitchen phone was attached to the wall and the cord would like stretch across the kitchen. And she'd be like making dinner. She'd be on the phone. We'd be sitting in there doing homework. And oftentimes she was on the phone with maybe parents of one of her students who had special needs. She was advocating for them, making them aware of supports that they had available for their child. Oftentimes she's on the phone with a fellow educator, like resolving internal conflict. So she just did these amazing things to serve her community and to serve like the world of education. And that's been my experience with most teachers, is that they're very mission led, they're mission driven, and I often feel like they're the underserved out there. I think they should get paid more. I mean, there's a lot. I don't want to hop on my soapbox, but I would say my mom was my inspiration. And being an entrepreneur since I graduated college, I'm out there often like, what's a problem and what's a solution for this problem? And post pandemic, I very much saw an issue, and it was teacher burnout. So I saw teachers who had been in the profession for over a decade and loved the profession, all of a sudden deciding I want to change careers or I'm just burnt out. And I saw this pattern and it became an epidemic. So that is the mission behind MetaClass, is to help cure teacher burnout by providing those items that you mentioned before, the ability to build communities, to share resources, to collaborate.
And that is so important. And going back a little bit to the story that you mentioned, yes, I am old enough to remember those phones. And I remember those cords just stretching, stretching. But do you remember, like, I mean, if you were on there for a very long time and really stretching, they just became like so loose. And so
Yeah,
I was just, yes, I remember that. And then they just tangled around
tangled.
themselves.
Yep.
And it was just, yes, I definitely remember those days. But, it's interesting, like you're saying, even at for your mom's experience and even now, it seems like education has changed in some ways, but those same aspects still apply today, where as educators, many times we want to help out our student community, reaching out to parents, and sometimes it may be even a little bit after like work hours, maybe like 4:15, trying to get that phone call in, trying to help out, trying to get that communication with parents and so on, just to help a student that may be struggling. And as a teacher, you never want your students to struggle. So I can see, and I can picture your mom doing that. And even in today's age, like you mentioned, I know pandemic happened. We went from brick and mortar to just flipping the switch on virtual. And a
Yeah.
lot of that did affect our teachers. And I know you mentioned burnout. So, and of course, the vision of MetaClass as a platform to alleviate some of that, building the collaboration, the communication skills, and then the resource sharing. And I think that that's something that is very important and still, even today, heavily needed. So I absolutely love that. Now, coming back a little bit, I just want to talk about that entrepreneurial spirit. So you found or you saw a problem in the sense that maybe mom's spending too much time on the phone after work, and you're seeing it today in that sense. And now you said, well, let's find a solution for this. So I kind of want to know just the thought process, for many educators out there that might have that entrepreneurial spirit, or anybody that may be listening, just to kind of get your thought process and wrapping our mind around how you went about with the project MetaClass.
So, and that's a really great question. I am a firm believer in, if you're going to create something that people want. So, when we created the technology, it's not necessarily like brand new cutting edge technology, it's technology that exists in other worlds, that exists in the corporate world. Oftentimes, like educators, I feel like will get the crumbs, or the technology is often archaic. So it was using what's already working and not recreating the wheel, but just centralizing it on a platform that made sense for educators. And so, in order to do that, didn't want to guess. And what we did is we beta tested with some select Google Innovator educators. So we got them on board and they used the app. They found bugs. It's software, so they were able to identify some of those bugs early on, and then also co-build some features. So we got their input, like, you know what, this feature right here would be really meaningful to educators. So we took note of that and we would start to build it out. Or, you know, you have this feature right here. This doesn't really translate. It might work in corporate America, but it doesn't work for educators. Okay, great. Then like, let's drop that. So there was just a lot of customization based upon feedback of the actual educators who are part of this cutting edge technology out there. So much props to the Google Innovator educators out there. It's a great community.
Absolutely. And that is how I became introduced more so to the Google Innovator community, was during that time of pandemic
Yeah.
and getting to meet, and all of a sudden a group of Google educators, and it was global GEG, that we got together and we started doing virtual trainings for teachers around the world in English and Spanish. And I thought that that was the most amazing experience. And actually, because of that, that led me also to, or inspired me to, do this podcast also. But one thing that I love is that, having that entrepreneurial spirit, and understanding obviously the problem and trying to design that solution. I love the fact that you took it to your end user and said, hey, check this out, this is what we're working on, what can you tell us, what works, what doesn't? And I feel that that is something that is very important and oftentimes overlooked, many times. And the only reason I say that is myself working as an instructional technologist for my district. I see platform after platform after platform. And sometimes I think, like, yeah, did they really put some thought into this, as far as the user experience on the teacher side, and then of course on the student side? And so that's very interesting, and it's something that is definitely very important that we need to always take into account. So kudos to you for taking it straight to your end users and getting some feedback, and the fact that, like you said, they even co-authored some of the things that are on the platform,
Yeah.
the usability, and of course the experience. So that's wonderful. So now let me ask you, so some of the unique features that MetaClass has, that sets it apart, tell us a little bit about that. I know we've mentioned already collaboration, we've mentioned of course communication, and resources, but let's dive in a little bit deeper into that. So as far as communication, what is the goal for MetaClass as far as communication within the platform and within teachers?
So the goal for communication is simple real-time communication. A lot of schools right now still use email for internal communication. And it's like the dreaded the thread of emails, reply all, right? And they get buried. And so one thing, we modeled our channel-based communication off of Slack, if you're familiar with Slack, and Discord. And so it's very efficient and it's also customizable. So what it allows a teacher to do is a teacher can pop on and they can customize a chat room. Maybe they're in fourth grade, a fourth grade teacher, and they want to customize a chat room with other fourth grade teachers. Maybe they want to do intra-district connection and connect with all fourth grade teachers across the entire district in order to share resources. Within a district, there's a lot of similar issues or problems. And so it's a way that they can customize that communication. Or maybe it's that they are part of an organization like the Google Innovator Educators, and they want the ability to connect with those other educators that are not in their time zone, that are not, within their district. So they can essentially connect with them around the world, and they can customize those rooms that are meaningful to them to create that efficient communication.
And as far as everything that you mentioned here, yes, yes, yes to everything, because you don't, and I'm sure you've experienced it even in yourself with the work that you're doing. But as far as teachers, I mean, when that inbox, I mean, from the moment that that door opens and then you log in and you're catching up from the day before, you start your class and then you end your class, and let's say you have either a little break in there or a recess, and then you go back to that inbox, and it's like, what happened here? It's like an explosion of emails that came through. And like you mentioned, they become the threads and it's the reply alls and so on. But I love what you were talking about as far as kind of creating that Slack style kind of platform and communication. And I see so many advantages of that because oftentimes a lot of the emails that do go out may not necessarily be for you, but it's just kind of like a general overall. So this would kind of alleviate some of that where now you can get very specific as to which group, or maybe within a group, or excuse me, within a room that's created, those are the people that need that specific information for whatever it is that they may be working on. And I know that that would help alleviate, the stress of the inbox, because that alone can be extremely stressful. And even myself, when I check Sunday evenings and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got emails here from Saturday afternoons, like I get stressed because I'm
Yeah.
like, should I answer now or should I wait till Monday? And I said, well, it's not really an emergency, but we'll see what we can do on Monday. But you're absolutely right. Now, one of the things that you mentioned that I absolutely loved was the ability to communicate with other educators, not necessarily in your building, but it could be either in a different building or within the district or even worldwide.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect because talk about collaboration and the fact that you can get that just in time support, maybe for a lesson or maybe a resource. I think that that takes it to a whole other level. And I'm definitely all for that for sure.
Yeah, in speaking with teachers, one thing that was interesting, there was a new teacher and she was part of this beta test and she was saying, I think she was like a 3-year teacher. And she said, I get my lesson plans from TikTok. She said, I will literally go on TikTok and start. But she's like, if I had other educators that I could just simply like shoot a message to, that would be so much more effective. Hey, I'm looking for a lesson plan on the solar system. Can anybody help me out? Yeah, sure, got you. Here's one. This resonated with my students. Okay, great. Rather than like scouring TikTok, which you go down the inevitable rabbit hole of like, now I'm starting to watch this video. So
Yes.
not exactly the most efficient.
No, absolutely. But again, and this is interesting that you mentioned this because this is actually leaning towards my dissertation, which my dissertation is, using social media or communication as a part of professional development and how well it does for teachers. Now, my biggest thing with professional development is that many times the professional development that is brought in is not necessarily specific to the needs of either that campus or the demographics of that campus. So it's very difficult many times to sit there and receive something from somebody that does not what's the word, customize, that's the word, customize to meet the needs of our specific demographic. So I can see that a lot of teachers kind of get real like, well, you know what, I could have been fixing my room or doing other things. But the fact that now they're able to communicate with somebody in a similar demographic area or have a similar experience, like you mentioned, like, hey, I'm looking for this type of lesson and be able to get it and be able to curate. I think that that is wonderful, and that's what I'm all here for. And that's why I'm like on Twitter, like that's what I'm looking for, just looking for that help and support and those ideas. And then of course, you sprinkle your own greatness into it, and then it can turn into something that is equally helpful. And now you can share that with everybody. So let me ask you, Laura, as far as that communication. So we talked about kind of that Slack style communication. You can create independent rooms, and I'm assuming that that would be the goal. Would be like those small groups, specific people that need to be there to build that community. Now, as far as the resources that may be shared, is there an ability to kind of either store those resources that teachers may find, like bookmark or anything of that sort, that they can come back to, or would they just need to download that right away onto their computers or devices?
Sure, it's a great question. So every room that either you create or you're invited to does have a folder feature. So all of those resources can be shared in that folder. And we're also building out a feature on the news feed that if something comes down the news feed and you want to save that post, there's going to be a save feature, and that will also go into separate folders. So you can organize the different resources that are meaningful to you and save them for later. Yeah.
Nice, nice, and that is huge, honestly, because many times, yeah, for myself, who's got multiple tabs open all the time, and I'm sure a lot of teachers do the same thing. Sometimes we close that tab and it's like, oh, we lost it, or we just do the Control Shift T, we get it back, but then something happens, and then we realize, like, oops, I didn't save that link. But I love the fact that you're able to do that room by room and be able to save those resources to come back to. So now we've talked about the communication piece, and so that I absolutely love communicating. Again, I'm going to repeat, like, I love that you can communicate within your school setting, your district setting, or even worldwide, globally, with other educators that may be teaching your same subject and so on. So I love that. Now let's talk a little bit more about that community also building aspect. So what are some ways that you have seen, or if you can tell us maybe some stories of some users as to how they've been able to build community within MetaClass?
Yeah, sure. When we initially did the beta launch, there were some new teachers, like first year teachers, who they gave them permission to come in and to give feedback as like a first year teacher. Well, one story in particular, there was this teacher who she started the school year. She felt a lot of polarization within her district between central office and educators, which I heard is quite common. And so she was very reluctant to ask questions, almost like scared, right? And although she really needed some of that mentorship and she was craving it, but she was scared to reach out. So she felt a lot more comfortable on this platform saying, hey, I'm a first year teacher. She kind of tested the waters, and the encouragement was like overwhelming. And so she had such a positive experience that she went back to the teacher that referred her to come on, who is a Google innovator. And she said, what was amazing to me is her like self-esteem as a first year teacher just increased to this next level. And she felt more confident being vocal and asking questions, and not like, I might get reprimanded if I ask the wrong question. And so just that ability to grow and to test the waters and know that, I mean, the education community, everyone, like what I've seen, they're so encouraging of one another. And one of the issues that was relayed to me was that on open facing social media sites, oftentimes, since it's not just educators, there's a lot of backlash, and educators don't feel safe to maybe post their opinion, and that it might be used against them. So in that like safe space of being able to create a community, it allows them to be a lot more free and open and more of a positive experience.
And that's something that is so important, to create that psychological safety.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it for our students, or at least we try and do it for our students, but it's very interesting that oftentimes we overlook that for the adults in the room, which would be the teachers. And what an experience, for somebody that's just new and coming in, who may have a plethora of questions, because this is going to be a new voyage that they're taking, and they don't know which direction to go, because they may hear this teacher or this administrator say, no, it's like this. And then the other one being pulled the other way and say, no, no, this is the way we do it, and so on. But then who do I ask, and who do I feel, and do I feel comfortable asking? Because then also, even within teachers, many times, like you mentioned, it's like you don't want to be that one person, like, oh my gosh, like they didn't they're at, can't believe they asked that, or
Yeah,
so on.
right.
I was like, hey, we were all there once,
Yep.
so that's the thing. But so I love that story that you mentioned, because I think that that's something that's very, very important, to create that psychological safety starting off, right from the get-go, and the fact that they feel safe in asking those questions. But then you also hit on something that I want to highlight, which is, like you said, on social media. Many times you find rooms or groups, whether it be Facebook or Twitter and so on. But many times there are some trolls that are out there that are just, they may not even be part of the group. It just be somebody that's just in there, just, trying to create havoc and just making people feel bad and so on. But I think it's that fear that has been instilled since, maybe, I guess, pandemic, and people putting themselves out there many times that they're like, "Oh, there's going to be consequences for this." And it's not necessarily all bad. It's just you just need someone to speak to and somebody that relates with you. So I love the fact that you offer and you took that into account as to why this would build that community. So I think that that's really big. So for our educators listening out there, and you're looking for a platform for community collaboration and resources, like you really need to check out MetaClass. And so I've been sharing the link within the chat, and of course you'll get all of that in the show notes. So we've talked about some of the features, Laura. We've talked about obviously the communication, the resources, and the community that is being built in. So then I want to ask you, what impact have you seen, from some of the feedback? I know you gave us a little bit of the feedback with Google Innovators, but maybe just whether it be a school district, do you have any kind of success stories that you can go ahead and share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of success stories, especially with school districts, for that internal communication piece, I mean, not only has it been sluggish and archaic through email and
Mm.
or just not communicating altogether on a day-to-day basis, but there have been circumstances where, let's say, within a school district, there are a number of support players that are supporting a child. So let's say you have a child, there's a situation where there was a child with dyslexia, and this particular child had, I want to say, 4 to 5, including the teacher, different support players in that school that were helping this child. They had no effective way to communicate, no effective way, as oh my, these are the gains that this kid, child A, don't have to use the child's name, but that they've gained in the past few months. And so being able to have it, or hey, I talked to mom today, here was input from mom. The other way they were communicating was simply, it was like, oh, I'll pass them in the hallway and we'll relay that communication. But to be able, it was so efficient and such a time saver that it also, I mean, not only helped them, but effectively helped the child, helped the parent. There was that snowball effect.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of things there that many times I haven't really realized or thought about, and now that you're causing me to reflect on a lot of this, even in my practice when I was in the classroom. And like you mentioned, there may be some students that need those additional supports, and it was so hard for all the parties that needed to be involved to help that student succeed or make sure that they receive the supports that they need to communicate. And it was just a juggling match, or juggling act, I should say, because you had the person that was the, let's say, initial interventionist, but then you had the administrator that was in charge of that, but then you also had somebody else from central office, and it was you couldn't really coordinate. But I love the fact that I'm already envisioning something like this where you can have one room for that one student or those cases that may be, whether in a school by itself, for and they can communicate back and forth and get all those documents. So I'm seeing just kind of that workflow, that ease of workflow, and of course, most importantly, being able to instantly share that information that is needed to help provide supports for students. So even right now, I'm like, yes, this could have been so useful when I was in the classroom. And it's still, I can still definitely see that use case now. So that's definitely great. So Laura, now let me ask you a little bit, because I know that you're going to give us just a little preview, of what that looks like. And I think we kind of lost your shared screen because I don't see it at the bottom. So maybe kind of while you set that up a little bit, I really just want to ask you too. It's like, how do you envision the future of MetaClass? And what maybe some new initiatives or features maybe that you may be thinking about adding to this space to kind of build or make it a little bit more robust as far as what it's offering.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we really do see MetaClass as a community engagement platform. And one of the features we're building out, you'll see it represented here. It's just the feature's not built out yet. So this is coming soon, but it's going to be an educator marketplace. So it'll be a space. One thing that we've noticed is most educators have some sort of side gig right? They have like a side hustle, whether they tutor after school, or maybe they teach virtual piano lessons, or maybe they host a podcast. I mean, whatever it is, they have something else that they do in addition to being an educator. And so but right now, it's mostly word of mouth, right? And to have a platform, to have a space where they can post what they do. They can post if, oh, I just offer this in person locally, or no, my service like I offer this virtually. So you can be anywhere around the world and access my service. And so to be able to have that as an area where those educators can promote what they do, they can share a link, they can post it on other forms of social media, they can share it. Like, for instance, referring back to this student who had dyslexia, I do know that, in fact, they were on the search for an Orton Gillingham certified tutor for this child, and nobody in the school was certified. So it was a lot of who knows somebody who's certified to be able to offer this child like appropriate supports. And again, it was word of mouth. Who knows somebody? But if you did have a platform where you could simply search that, almost like think of like Facebook Marketplace, but instead of searching for a sofa within a 10-mile radius, right? You're searching for an Orton Gillingham certified tutor who can offer supports to my child with dyslexia, or to my student that I can refer to a parent. So that's a feature that is being built out as we speak.
Perfect. And you know what? I love that because you're absolutely right. There are a lot of teachers out there that have some amazing skills outside of the classroom. And of course, for them to be able to offer either those additional services as far as tutoring. And I can tell you right now that, at least in my experience, especially as the time gets closer for state testing, there are parents that I will run into and they're asking like, Mr. Mendoza, do you know anybody? Is there anybody that you can refer me to? It doesn't matter if they're in district or out district. They just really want what's best for their child and they want to provide that additional support. And so this would be a great way too for themselves to, like you mentioned, be able to put themselves out there, what it is that they offer. But it's a really nice specific niche where you don't have to go dig around through like Facebook Marketplace and let's get rid of the ugly sofa section and see where we can find the tutors,
Right.
for sure. All right. So Laura, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and add your screen now, and then you can
Okay.
kind of give us a little brief overview for our audience members that are watching or rewatching and those that will be listening. That way they get an idea as far as what they will find within the platform. So here we go.
Okay, great. So yeah, here's a quick snapshot of the desktop version of MetaClass. We also have mobile version. So what we defaulted to here is the chat channels. So up here at the top, what you see is public rooms. So here's like for instance, we have an Ask a Google Innovator Educator, which is a new room that we just created. But what this will enable, just created today, but what this one will enable all educators, everyone on the platform, that they can hop in here and they can actually talk to a Google Innovator Educator, ask them questions, because a lot of these educators they're so willing to help in any way. So all of these public rooms up here, again, accessible to everyone. As you hop down to rooms, these are the customizable rooms. And this is a room that I created. So I'm the only member, but as you can see here, there's a folder. And when you hop up to the folder, that's where you can add attachments, you can add worksheets, lesson plans, and other resources that you can share with whomever is in that room. And again, when you create a room, you can add whomever you like. You can add members. And so again, very customizable. Direct messages is just that. A resources tab where you can add schedules or lunch menus or different resources that might be meaningful to you to have right there on the tip of your fingers. We'll hop over here. This is the discrete social news feed. And so, yeah, as you can see, it's just different posts, just like any other news feed that you might come across. And then down here, where you see that money sign, that's where the educator marketplace will live. And so again, that's being built out right now. So we don't have that up and live, But that is, yeah, that's a quick, um, just refreshing here. Yeah, that's what
Hey,
I thought. Hey,
who's
where did
that
that
guy?
come from? But yes, so that is the functionality of MetaClass. Very simple, very intuitive, and yeah, there you have it.
Absolutely. That was great. And what I love about it as far as the user experience, the simplicity of it's not anything that is overwhelming or overbearing, where it may feel like a teacher might be adding something else to their plate. Not at all. If anything, I just love how streamlined it is and the way that you have everything laid out and easy to find. And of course, I want to give a big shout out to a lot of the Google innovators that were there. I saw Luis,
Oh
Steph
yeah.
Howell, yeah, Luis, Steph Howell, we saw Greta, we saw who else was it? Others
So
were there.
Kayla, Kat,
Yes, Kayla, Kat. There we
Marilyn,
go
yeah.
too. So, oh my gosh, so many great people there. And I don't know how that picture of that last guy got on there. I don't know, but I don't know. And just again, this is a side note. I did not ask her to do that, guys. Okay,
No,
so
no,
if you
you
guys
didn't.
are watching the show, I never mentioned that at all whatsoever. Well, I absolutely love it. So, thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, for our audience members, like I mentioned, please make sure you check out the website. I have been sharing it here. I've also been sharing Laura's information so you can connect with her on LinkedIn. But we all know that that'll be on the show notes. So now as we're getting a little bit closer to wrap up, I kind of have like two more questions for you, Laura. And based on your experience and what you see, and not necessarily like meta class only, but because I know that you are so well connected. I mean, just seeing the room of people that I had the opportunity to be in because of Jacqueline, and then I got to meet you, and then hearing so many other people's stories there. And of course, DM also as well, who's been a guest, and what you're doing. So my question to you is, how do you see technology playing a role in the future of education? And what other opportunities do you see still to further that innovation even more?
So I'm so excited about the technology that is at the forefront and how it will be integrated into education. I think that if used appropriately, it can take such a workload off of our teachers, like an unnecessary workload. So, for instance, I have a friend. He's currently in Y Combinator with a startup that utilizes AI to help create lesson plans for educators. I know there's some of these tools out there, but how cool that an educator can just throw in an AI platform. I'm looking for a lesson plan for this age group, throw in some parameters, and then boom, it can be created within like 60 seconds. And then again, like you said, they can put their own stamp on it, their own personalized stamp. It doesn't have to be, just cookie cutter, but it gives them the framework that might have taken them hours to create. And so just making that so much more efficient. So I see AI playing a big role, and then teaching, students also how to appropriately use it, because I think it can be a phenomenal tool.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. This is what we're seeing. And I think as I think after pandemic, I know at least this is what I saw when we came back to brick and mortar. I saw a lot of teachers go back to analog. In other words, they were putting the Chromebooks away. And I feel that it was maybe just kind of that sort of trauma where they associate that device or they associate that platform with this 2 year span, 3 year span of what they had to do online. And just now, just kind of like last year. And, now this year, like I said, we just started, but man, they're really taking off with it again, and I think they just kind of needed a little break off of the tech. But now I really truly believe that with that experience, a lot of teachers that were once very anti-tech and would not want to use it and touch it now are more open to what is out there. And of course, those conversations are being had in various schools, and I know there's always that concern because of AI and so on. But a lot of the teachers have been able to adapt very well and are seeing like, okay, well, what's the upside of this? I know we hear like, oh, the scary parts, but what's the upside? And I think that that really brings a little bit of joy to my heart, especially being an instructional tech where I work with teachers, that it's no longer like, no, no, I don't want this. I'm scared. Like this isn't good. Now they're like, okay, cool. What's the upside? Like, how is is this going to save me time? And they actually get excited about it. So I think this is a really exciting time for education and innovation in practice, because the practice is going to change, the schooling is going to change a bit, because we got to prep our kids a lot better, than we have been doing in the past. And it's just a time for adapting. So I'm really excited. So thank you so much for sharing that, and definitely looking forward to, of course, what MetaClass is doing, what is to come. And like I mentioned, hopefully we can connect way more educators and even school districts to like really hop on and see the upside of this great collaboration, community, and resource platform that you have helped co-found and have used end users to shape the way that it is used and laid out. And so I applaud you for that, Laura. Thank you so much for the work that you put in, because I know it's not easy. And it's great that I got to connect with you and have you here on the show to share your story and your vision. So it's been great conversation. But before we wrap up, all right, this is the last part of our show. And I know I sent you the questions ahead of time, so you had a little bit of time to kind of think about that. So let's go ahead and get started with
Yeah.
our final three questions. All
All
right.
right.
So here we go. Now, we all know that kryptonite was Superman's weakness. So as kryptonite came a little bit closer to Superman, he kind of started just like really just folding down and just getting weakened. So I want to ask you, Laura, in the current state of education and what you see from your viewpoint, what would you say is your current edu kryptonite?
I would say, and this might be unpopular opinion, but is the overabundance of standardized testing. I would say that that is my kryptonite. I'm a parent. I have 4 kids. And so I see this stress level. I mean, you talk about stress for teachers too. It's like I can see as that date approaches, it's like the stress on them, the stress on the kids, on the parents, on the principals. So standardized testing.
Excellent. I couldn't agree with you more. I second that for sure. I was like, and I've never been a big fan of it at all. I mean, 17 years in this business, and I'm like, I can't believe we haven't gotten rid of it, but it is what it is, but we just kind of have to adapt to it. But yes, great answer. All right, question number 2.
Okay.
If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Okay, so this might sound a little bit corny, but just like go with me on this carpet ride here. If that billboard, I'm like, I was thinking about it, could just be this like giant mirror, right? And like as you're driving by, walking by, like you see this reflection of yourself, and there's just like these positive affirmations that pop up. It's like you matter, like what you did today made a difference. Because whether you're an educator, a student, I mean, a parent, I think often, I mean, all of us, we fight battles that nobody else knows about. And, that inner voice is the loudest voice. And so just like to see yourself on this like giant billboard with just like all this positivity, just like overwhelming you, that's what I would have this giant billboard be. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That sounds like a unicorn to me. I don't know. So
There you
that
go. We'll talk
sounds
about the technology.
yeah, that sounds like a unicorn to me right there. Oh, I think you're onto something there. You're onto something. So that'll be
Next.
unicorn number 2. There you go. All right. And the last question, my friend, before we wrap up is, do you have, or actually, I would let me reword that. All right. What would be a hobby or a favorite activity outside of MetaClass, all right, that you would turn into a profession?
Okay. So like I mentioned, I have 4 kids. And so my hobby, I think at this stage of my life is usually doing things with my children. I mean, they're in school, they play sports. And so to like have that quality time with them is truly how, as a mom of 4, you don't have a whole lot of hobbies. So, but I mean, they're at fun ages. They're 13, 12, 9, and 5. So they're just like fun ages, and it goes fast. So have you ever seen the movie Big?
Yes.
Okay. So Tom Hanks starts off, I think he's like 12 years old, and he makes a wish and becomes an adult, right? But while he's an adult, he gets a job, and he gets a job at this toy company. and they hire him because, I mean, he's really a little kid trapped in like an adult body, but they hire him because he's enthusiastic and he has like this like childlike imagination because he kind of is a child. But I mean, along that same vein, what I would do is I would create like some, just because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, is create like a product, create, I mean, maybe it's tech, maybe it's not, but where like my feedback, my like end user feedback is kids because they're brilliant. You know, I mean, like a kid could hop on MetaClass and there's no learning curve. Yeah, I mean, there's no, they don't need a demo. They just, I mean, their minds are sponges and they have such great ideas. And I think oftentimes, like when they're in the classroom, when they're in school, and I love school, but especially those kids who have like certain disabilities, but oftentimes those disabilities are like superpowers, to be in an environment where they can like contribute and be creative and like let their ideas be known. I'm like, I feel like that, yeah, I mean, it just excites me like talking about it. So like that's what I would do. I would have all these children like just giving input on like, hey, if you had this product, this would like help kids. If you did this, so
I
that's what I would do as my job.
I think that's a great idea. I agree with you 100%. So many kids out there have these amazing superpowers, but we don't give them a creative outlet to be able to
Mhm.
share that because everything is so standardized, you
Right.
know, and not everybody learns in the same way. You know, not
Yeah.
everybody processes the same way, you know, but I absolutely love that idea. And yes, I could definitely see that. So now I think that might be the third one, Laura. That's the unicorn number three. So
There you
we'll
go.
see. That's it. That's it. The three unicorns. I've never seen that before. So that's amazing. That's wonderful. All right. Well, Laura, it has been an honor. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for just a wonderful chat this evening. Thank you so much for sharing your work, your passion, your energy with us this evening. And again, I am very thankful to our friend Jacqueline Gochoco, also to Rita Ferrandino. Thank you so much, Rita. And of course, everybody like John Gamba, who I didn't get to meet there. I don't think I did, but I mean, if he was there, great. I mean, just thank you so much. But I mean, Laura, thank you. I really appreciate it. And again, I'm really excited to put this show up and start sharing some of those promo clips. A lot of great stuff that you shared today with MetaClass. So thank you so much. And for our audience members, thank you so much, as always, for making my EdTech Life part of your listening pleasure. Please make sure that you visit our website at myedtech.life, myedtech.life, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 221 episodes with founders, educators, education practitioners, creators that you can learn from, take from, sprinkle onto what you are already doing great. And like Laura said, put your own stamp on it. So
Mhm.
that's what we're here for. And thank you for all the support. Please make sure you go to your favorite podcast player, subscribe to our episodes. Please make sure you go to YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. Please make sure you leave us a review on Spotify, leave us a review on Apple as well. We would love to hear back from you. And then that way, all of the great little AI algorithms can start putting these shows out to everybody's feed. And of course, you yourself, I just simply ask that you share us on your feed as well. We would greatly appreciate it because that does so much for us here at the show. All right, my friends. So until next time, as always, don't forget, stay techie.